God's law governs everything. And some people don't see it, they don't know about it, they don't know where it's written in our laws that God actually has full rule and reign over everyone and everything. But it is quite true. And so, to begin with today, I would like to tell you about lex naturalis. It means natural law, and it is written in the foundation of our laws. And de gratia, by the grace of God. Those are Latin words. Psalms 21:30 says, "There is no wisdom, nor understanding, or counsel against the Lord." Now this is a saying that I have not found anywhere or heard. It's a saying that I believe God spoke to me the other night. Common sense, right and wrong, and God could not be revised, regulated, or legislated by statute, rule, or code. And the way that God brought that to me was because I was thinking about some of the older laws that we have that have never been overruled or legislated out of existence. And yet there are people out there, well, actually acting as persons, who tend to think or say that that the old laws have been revised out of existence, legislated out of existence, or whatever. They try to say that, and but it's not true. The truth is that God Himself and common sense, right and wrong, truth. God is truth. He is justice. He is wisdom. He is knowledge. He is love. And you can't put bars on God. You can't put Him in a box. The only thing that you can do by your own choice and your own will is you can kick God out of your life. You can tell Him that He's not permitted to have authority over you in your life, that you're going to live your own life by your own laws or other people's laws, and that's what you're going to do, and you're going to live by your own wisdom and understanding apart from God, and that you're going to pursue your own path. You do have that freedom. You do have that choice. But if in your actions you attempt to overrule or overthrow God's law, try to do things to other people that they are not deserving of, you are going to be in for a mistake. Do what God tells you to do. Do what you know is right. Do what common sense, common law, natural law tells you to do is right. Don't try to lean on your own wisdom or understanding. Natural law comes directly from God. It gives us our ability to self-govern. It's what tells you not to go 100 miles an hour down a windy road. The speed limit sign is not what's telling you not to drive 100 miles an hour down the road. It's your common sense. Okay? And it's the Lord that, in your willingness to want to survive and stay alive. Okay? When the fog comes and the ice comes on the road, you know that you should slow down. Okay? And this comes sometimes through experience. But the fact of the matter is that self-governing law is natural law. When one man or woman violates someone else's rights or freedoms, injures someone else in some way or their property, then we go to common law, which is where 12 or more people have to get together and decide what was done that was wrong, if someone was injured or if they weren't injured, and what's going to be done about it, what the penalty should be. Now, if it's only 12 people, most likely the plaintiff and the judge will decide what the penalty is. If it's 25, if it's a jury of 25, then the jury will decide what should be done. Attempts have been made several times to outlaw God, and the people in the Bible that worshipped the Baals attempted to outlaw God, and they burnt their children and sacrificed them in fire, and eventually God wiped them out either through disasters or through His own people or another nation wiping them out for what they were doing. And God, of course, always protected and spared the people that listened to Him and were willing to do what was right. The Jews tried to outlaw God, the Jewish people, and here's how they did that. They had their law of Moses, and they attempted to continue to legislate and create more laws on top of that, and they kept going with it. Well, God would send people to speak to them as a voice, as a mouthpiece. Prophets, they were called. And the Jews didn't like the prophets and what they had to say, because what they had to say didn't line up with their rules and regulations and laws and the way that they were living, because God's law was superior to their law, and they didn't want to follow it. So they decided that, and I'm sure they took a vote, they decided that in order to silence God, they would simply silence the people that God sent. They would decapitate them or stone them or whatever they were going to do. And so then God sent himself as the Son of God into the world, and they killed him. And so they tried to outlaw God and shut God up. They've tried that forever. A lot of churches do that. They say you go to the pastor or the elders and you ask what to do. If you haven't been through seminary school, you can't possibly understand the Bible, just like a lawyer will tell you that if you haven't been through bar school, you can't understand the law. The law and God and the government are very much intertwined. People say to separate politics and religion. However, politics is founded upon God. When you separate the two, what you end up with is faith in the government and faith in people, that they can take care of you and they know what's best for you. Okay? Or if you're in the government, it's faith in yourself, that you are a supreme being that should be able to rule over others. And that is a very easy thing in both the church and the government to get caught up in. It happens all the time. Pastors and elders. And they love 2 Timothy, I believe it is, where he says that elders and pastors are deserving of a double portion, double honor, double praise of everyone else on the planet. Somehow they're superior. And that's false. That's a false statement, even though it's written in the Bible, because Jesus says that we are all equal as his brothers and that we're all sons of the Father God. So in churches, a lot of times pastors get promoted, and it's sometimes it's self-promotion, and sometimes it's promotion from their congregation. And so what happens is that first of all, the group of people in the congregation start looking up to this pastor, even if he doesn't want to be looked up to. And of course, Jesus Christ in Matthew, I believe it's chapter 23 or 25, I think it was 23, says that there are to be no teachers or rabbis or pastors in the church, that we're all brothers. We're all equal under natural law and common law. But one way or another, someone always ends up seeming to be putting themselves in charge or being put in charge. And of course, this is historical, because we go back to before Israel had a king. God wanted to be the king over Israel. The people said that they wanted a king to fight their battles for them. That's what they wanted, and they insisted on it. So God finally said, fine, you can have a king. I will give you a king. These are the consequences. You will be slaves to the king. Their cattle, their whatever, were his. And God told them they would enter into slavery if they had any other government besides him. Would take this tenth of whatever they had and use it to fight their battles for them. They didn't care about losing their rights, privileges, laws, whatever. They didn't care about losing their freedom to worship God the way that they believed they should. They didn't care about any of that. They wanted a king. Okay? And so this is a historical pattern. The people decided that they wanted someone to blame all their problems on. They gossip in the community. They say things. They get mad. They don't like themselves. What they really have a problem with is themselves and with God. And what happens there is that they want to live their life the way they want to live it, and God challenges them and tells them to live a different life, live a different way. And they choose that they aren't going to. They're going to construct their own God. So they're going to say, God, you can have this part of my life, but this part of my life is mine. My drinking part of my life, my smoking part of my life. And when you enter into that type of a territory with God, then Satan is going to take over where God doesn't, where you don't allow God in. And so that's where things become dangerous and complicated. So what happens with all of this, when people do that, then God allows Satan's masters to be put over them, the principalities and powers, the dark ones that are spoken of in the Bible, as the government, just like Rome. And the only people that are free from this tyranny are people who follow God. The people who refuse to compromise and choose to stand in God's blessings and promises and choose to follow Him are the only people that are truly free from this tyranny. And Psalms 91 promises that this tyranny will not come near our tents if we follow Him. The Bible says His people will cry out for justice. And there are methods that are established to find justice, but you must let the Lord be your counsel. And do not compromise or seek counsel from the ungodly. Okay? It doesn't matter what position you're in either. Whether you are a judge, or a lawyer, or a sheriff, or a prosecutor, or a church leader, or a pastor, or maybe just the head of a family. It does not matter what your position is, but we can all do something. Doing nothing is giving Satan consent. How about being proud of being a drug dealer? How about being proud? They're all the same. Okay, so proud of being a liar, hypocrite, or whatever. That's a false pride. That is a very false pride that comes from Satan. And yet our TV shows are riddled with it. And why? Well, for one reason, it's because people would rather be happy with the way they are than have to change or do something uncomfortable. And so it's very simple to surround yourself with people that are involved in the same sin, in the same evil, and use that to justify yourself. It's very easy to do that, to allow them to influence you and continue on that road of destruction. Okay? And they may even try to reach out to you and help you in your time of distress,